Welcome back to Legitimate Targets, everybody. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the conservative political commentator, and who I think maybe was behind all of this, okay? Now, obviously, I want to start off by saying what took place was an absolute tragedy. I was live on TikTok, live streaming when this took place, and I mean, you probably saw it in my face if you're watching. It was just horrifying to watch that video in front of all those people, in front of his wife, his child, his friends, his family. I could not think of something worse to happen to any one individual, let alone Charlie Kirk, who I think in no way, shape, or form deserve this. There's some crazy people online who are like celebrating this or saying, "Oh, well, you know, he said bad things. He did bad things." Okay. Charlie Kirk was a political commentator, not a politician, not a government official, not a military official. Charlie Kirk had no say over the state of our country, over where our country was headed, over the foreign policy decisions of our country. He had no influence on these things. So in the same way that I completely am appalled and disgusted by people who assassinated individuals like Daria Dugina, the extremely bright and courageous young Russian journalist and philosopher who was standing up for her country. She was assassinated by Ukrainian terrorists, these demonic anti-human scum. The same way I am going to be disgusted by anyone who's celebrating what happened to Charlie Kirk last night. I mean, if you are celebrating that, you have really no value for human life. And anyone who's committing these acts, of course, has no regard for human life, which I think leads us into the conversation about who may have been responsible. Okay, now, when this news broke, when the videos came out, there was very quickly a lot of videos, a lot of photos that were surfacing of a single man who was being alleged as the shooter of Charlie Kirk. You had police who were manhandling this man, carrying him with his arms and legs out of the venue in which the assassination took place at Utah Valley University. And, you know, this man, he didn't have a gun on him. He looked like some old boomer, some Larry David, you know, physique boomer. A lot of people initially took to Twitter and said, "Oh, this must be some old crazy liberal that did this. You know, he's off his meds," or something to that effect. And while he may be a old crazy leftist boomer, he may be a off his meds or something, or on too many meds. What we have now confirmed is that this was not the shooter. But I don't want to gloss over this part of the story because it is important. Okay, this was the man in question. You can see him right here. He's being, you know, at this point, he was just handcuffed and he was complying with the police orders, presumably. And, you know, he was arrested within the grounds, the grassy grounds of the venue. So immediately when I saw this, I was thinking to myself, well, everyone is saying that Charlie Kirk was shot from afar, maybe as much as 200 yards away. So how was he been arrested within minutes, if not seconds, of this shooting taking place, but he's on the grassy hill, which was, you know, maybe it was spanning 50, 60 feet up into the outdoor auditorium. So that didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, well, if he was shot from so far away, how is this the guy that assassinated him? Okay. Then something else really, really weird started to fill our phone screens as we were watching this all unfold. Let me go here. You had the suspected shooter, the alleged shooter, who was being, again, carried out by the police, and he started to say this.
Shoot me! Shoot me! Was that you? We don't know if it's him or not.
So you can hear in this video, he's saying, "Shoot me, shoot me." And the bystanders are like, "Oh, we don't know if it's him or not. Like, don't try to hurt this guy. We don't know if it's him." There was a lot of skepticism in the crowd. probably for the same reasons that I held this skepticism. I mean, this guy doesn't fit the mold for multiple reasons. Logistically, of course, being the main one, as having been the shooter of Charlie Kirk. So why is he saying, shoot me, shoot me? Why is he screaming like a lunatic? After this part of the video, I don't know if it's shown here. No, it's in another video. Okay, so in this part of the video, you can kind of start to see it. He ends up on the ground somehow, and then he is carried off by the police. One officer was grabbing his arms, one officer was grabbing his legs, and they, essentially hogtied him and carried him out of there. So all of the police presence was fully directed at this man, the alleged shooter. And he was saying, shoot me, shoot me. He was acting like he was the shooter. This is what you call a patsy, a Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay, he was clearly not in the right state of mind, or he was knowingly acting and serving as a distraction for the real shooter to get away. Because as he was doing all of this, and all the police are focused on him, all of the people are focused on him, all the phone cameras are focused on him, where's the real shooter? No one knows. Why is he saying shoot me, if he was not involved in the attack, if he was not the guilty party here? Does that make any sense to anybody? I mean, that was the first thing I'm thinking. I'm like, am I hearing this correctly? This guy's saying, shoot me, kill me, but he's not the one that shot Charlie Kirk. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Or does this very clearly look like a patsy situation where if someone were to have shot him just then, maybe people would have just presumed that he was the guilty party and no one would have ever known. And there would have been no follow-up questions to this man. There would have been no one to actually inquire to this man to find out whether he was or was not the shooter. Could be. I don't know. I don't know if he was knowingly doing that or if he's just a lunatic or he's working in collusion with the shooter. I don't know. But I have a very big red flag that goes up when I see this video. Okay, so that was the first big red flag in this incident. Police, after about an hour or 2 hours, maybe they said, you know what? That was not the shooter. FBI is going to be doing a region-wide manhunt now. What? That's not that. So we were correct. That was not the shooter. That guy was a patsy. He's either delusional or he was working in tandem with the shooter to obfuscate the situation, create chaos, and create a diversion for the actual shooter to presumably leave. I mean, this is obviously a horrible tragedy, and I don't want to make light of that, but the only way we can prevent future tragedies like this from taking place is if we get to the bottom of actually what is going on here, who's responsible, why there's an old man yelling, shoot me, as he's being carried off by police, but the real shooter is fleeing the scene without a trace. Okay? So here we go into the next part of the story. There are multiple videos confirming this. This is the actual alleged shooter.
Right up. Yeah. You think he'd already be in place?
On a nearby building. The people recording this video said that they saw him run across the building and then lay down there.
You would think that. So there's somebody on the roof right there? Just saying? Huh. He just ran from, where's my finger? Well, from over there, ran in, and now he's right there.
Given the calm nature of this video, we don't know, but I would assume that this was taken before the shooting took place. Obviously, if he's laying down there, that would also indicate that this was before the shooting. Here you have a bird's eye view of how far away the shooter would have been, but it was, perfect line of sight directly into the center of this outdoor auditorium where Charlie Kirk was sitting. I mean, this was obviously planned. The shooter had to have known that Charlie Kirk was going to be at least in this vicinity, and probably in that exact location, because given the very clear line of sight that he had into the center of that auditorium. Now, what I'll also say is, yeah, it's maybe 200, 100 yards away, but don't you think that, any of the thousands of people here would have been able to simply turn around and see that the shot came from here? I mean, don't you think someone would have captured that on camera? There is one video from, I believe it's inside this building, which did capture someone running on the rooftop, but it's a very, it's poor film, but you can see them running. It's just absolutely crazy that they were trying to, for some reason, pass off this guy as being the shooter from within the grassy outdoor auditorium, okay? So now we get to this point where we know that there is a shooter from above, from a good distance away from where Charlie Kirk was sitting. And now you start to go into the psychology of someone who would have done this. Well, obviously, there's no question this is premeditated. Someone came there with a gun. Charlie Kirk had announced he was going to be at this university. I don't know if the exact location was announced, like he was going to be in that little grassy outdoor auditorium. But someone came there. They had enough time to climb on that building. Maybe they even timed the shooting directly with the question that was being asked. There was a question about mass shootings being asked, and Charlie Kirk was answering. And he said, there's too many trans mass shooters. This is a crazy problem that we have in the United States. And he also started to talk about gang violence, and then boom, he gets shot. Okay, well, if this was a purely bipartisan left-right Republican Democrat motivated attack, you would think that this would fall in line with so many of the other mass shootings or political assassinations or attempts that we've seen in recent years of this nature. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is almost always, in fact, I can't think of one example where this has not been the case. These mass shooters or these attempted assassins, they crave the attention. They are doing this not only, but maybe in large part, in many cases, for the attention, to be seen, to be noticed, to have their message, no matter how schizophrenic it might be, to be seen and read by the masses. Okay, they want this attention. Now, in the case of Charlie Kirk, you don't have that. You don't have that at all. This guy or woman shoots him and then flees the scene without a trace. There's no note, there's no manifesto, there's no bullet casing, there's no weapon left behind. Clearly, this was done in as much of a covert nature as possible, so much so to the fact that I'd even say that that guy was probably a patsy. Of course, we have to have more information. I don't know if they'll give us that information, but I think that guy was a patsy who was initially arrested, okay? Now, mass shooters, if they want attention, what do governments want? Governments want to assassinate their targets without leaving a trace. That's how they all operate. Intelligence agencies, on behalf of governments, when they assassinate someone, they don't say, oh, we have, well, maybe, top political assassinations if you're like at war. Obviously, that's a different scenario. But when you're trying to covertly take someone out and evade any sort of guilt, you do this in a way that will create as much, chaos and obscure the situation, muddy the waters as much as possible in an effort to actually avoid the blame being pinned on you. And that seems to be exactly what we are witnessing now with this event. So if a government or a large political body were to attack Charlie Kirk, who would it be? Who would benefit from something like this? Would the Democrats benefit? Possibly. Possibly the Democrats could benefit from something like this. Charlie Kirk was a very moderate right-wing person, though, for the most part. I mean, when it came to domestic politics, he was pretty in line with Trump. When it came to foreign policy, also pretty in line with Trump, with one notable exception, which we'll talk about in a moment here. But, this guy is pretty moderate. So would the Democrats benefit from something like this? Cui bono? Who benefits? The Democrats, you could argue, would potentially benefit. I could think of a lot higher level targets they'd want to actually take out, though, if they were trying to stop policy from being implemented, because Charlie Kirk's not a politician. Again, he's not a politician. So maybe if they wanted to take out, I don't know, any one of the Trump officials, that would actually potentially stop a policy from being implemented. Maybe the Democrats wanted to take him out because they wanted someone more insane to fill the void. I don't know. I really struggle to understand how the Democrats would benefit from something like this, because right now the narrative online is like, well, look at how extreme these liberals have become. They're killing people. They try to kill Trump. You have that black guy that killed that Ukrainian girl the other day. I'm not saying he was a Democrat, but like, and then you have, he did say, though, I killed that white girl. And then you have this now taking place. So the narrative, I don't really think necessarily benefits the Democratic Party. Okay, if a government were to take Charlie Kirk out, who could we potentially look to? Well, we could look to Ukraine, definitely. Ukraine, I don't think he was on their government kill list. But you say, look at Ukraine. Well, Charlie Kirk's opinions on Ukraine, yes, he doesn't like Ukraine. He's always spoken out against it, but not like me. He's not like a Z in the chat, ardently pro-Russia. He's not like that. He's just like I don't think we should send all this money to Ukraine, whatever. Does Ukraine have a history of political assassinations? Of course they do. Of course they do. They tried to plant a car bomb under Tucker Carlson's car when he was in Moscow. And I know several people who either had a family member assassinated by Ukrainians or who Ukrainians attempted to assassinate and they managed to make it out alive. So that is a possibility. But when you look at the material reality of like, okay, who has the ability to influence policy regarding Ukraine? Does Charlie Kirk have any influence over that? No, he doesn't. Is Charlie Kirk a politician? No. Is he a State Department official? No. Is he a Pentagon official? No. Is he an intelligence official? No. So why would you kill Charlie Kirk if you're Ukraine? So that I say that doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't make any sense. If Ukraine wanted to target an American, well, I mean, they did try to target Tucker Carlson before he did his Putin interview. But don't you think they would target someone who's like affecting policy, like engaging in negotiations right now with Russia or engaging in negotiations with Ukraine or something? I think that they would target someone like that. So what other country could potentially target Charlie Kirk? That leaves us with Israel, so long as you have an IQ above room temperature and more than, 2 cells working in your brain right now. And there were some interesting, very curious things that went along with this theory. And it's a theory that I will say I fully back. As of right now, I don't have any reason to believe that this was some like crazy liberal. I don't have any reason to believe that this was necessarily the Democratic Party. I don't have any reason to believe that this was Ukraine. You could make arguments for each one, but the overwhelming amount of arguments, as for what we have right now, at 2:23 p.m. Moscow time on September 11th, notable day, by the way, for this to be happening, is Israel. I think Israel killed Charlie Kirk. And I'm saying that completely with a straight face. I'm saying that I do. As of right now, the information we have, who knows, in 3 hours, that information there could be new information that makes me change my mind. All I know is that whoever the shooter was, this is more than enough time to get out of the United States and travel to some safe haven country. This is more than enough time. He's obviously a skilled professional that killed Charlie Kirk, 100 to 200 yards away, shot him right in the jugular, broad daylight, got out without a trace, somehow evaded all the security cameras, somehow evaded anyone at a public university or private, I don't know, at a major university seeing him in broad daylight. I think, and there was also a patsy, presumably, that was obfuscating the situation. I do think this was a professional hit. I don't think anyone will deny that. And I do think that there were very powerful actors involved. And the only powerful actors I could think of would be Israel. Now, some might look at me and say, but Jackson, Charlie Kirk, he's like pro-Israel. You know, he knew Netanyahu personally. Yeah. And that's all the more reason for me to believe that it was Israel who took him out. Because guess what? Charlie Kirk has kind of become infamous for being so pro-Israel throughout his career. Okay, he hides from debating this issue. He's gone to war with different online communities over this issue. He's been really turned into a public clown in a lot of ways throughout the majority of his career for being so pro-Israel. He went to the wall, the Wailing Wall, and kissed it. He knows Netanyahu personally. Okay? He has made a name for himself. I mean, TPUSA, his organization, literally bans people, has banned people in the past, I'll say. Now it's changed. But for being anti-Israel, even slightly anti-Israel. They ban speakers. They ban local chapter affiliates. They ban all the influencers for being anti-Israel in any way, shape, or form. But over the last year, things kind of started to change. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, how Charlie Kirk started to change. I'm not saying he's out here like Jackson Hinkle or like even as much as Tucker Carlson, how based he's gone on the question of Israel. But he has changed. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But before we do, I want to address what Benjamin Netanyahu had to say of all of this. Because oddly enough, minutes after Charlie Kirk was shot, Benjamin Netanyahu decided to interrupt his busy schedule of bombing 7 different countries, committing a genocide in Gaza, to tweet about Charlie Kirk. Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, a country halfway around the world, who is currently bombing civilians in 7 different countries. Benjamin Netanyahu is in the midst of a domestic political scandal and crisis with the Supreme Court that very well will probably bring about the end of his political career at some point soon, and in him and his wife in prison. Benjamin Netanyahu decided to interrupt his schedule to tweet about Charlie Kirk minutes after the shooting took place. Yeah, I find that a bit odd. He said, praying for Charlie Kirk. Praying for Charlie Kirk. Okay? Not much to it, but still, I found it very odd. He actually got his tweet out seconds before Donald Trump got his tweet out. Donald Trump obviously is a close associate and friend of Charlie Kirk. And Benjamin Netanyahu's tweet went out before Donald Trump's tweet. 3:02 p.m. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, why the hell is Benjamin Netanyahu tweeting about this right now, minutes after this happened? Well, all the things he's got going on right now. He's stopping his schedule to focus on Charlie Kirk. That seems a bit odd to me. Okay. Then a little bit later on, we had this tweet come out. Again, Benjamin Netanyahu, he put out 2 tweets about this. He said Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking truth and defending freedom. A lion-hearted friend of Israel, he fought the lies and stood tall for Judeo-Christian civilization. I spoke to him only 2 weeks ago and invited him to Israel. Sadly, that visit will not take place. We lost an incredible human being. His boundless pride in America and his valiant belief in free speech will leave a lasting impact. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. So, what did I just read? He said, Benjamin Netanyahu, again, put out a second tweet in the midst of bombing 7 countries halfway across the world as he's in the middle of this political crisis in his country, to say, I spoke to Charlie Kirk only 2 weeks ago and invited him to Israel. That's odd. You were speaking to Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago? And you invited, so the prime minister of Israel was speaking to this guy that was just assassinated 2 weeks ago and invited him to your country. Again, this is at a point in time when Charlie's opinions about Israel were shifting a great deal, and he was receiving a lot of flack for it. I'll get into it in a second. I'll show you. Why? At the moment that Charlie Kirk was coming under pressure from Israeli-funded lobby groups and media organizations in the United States for tepidly criticizing the state of Israel, tepidly criticizing their carpet bombing of Gaza, criticizing their role in dragging the United States into a war in Iran, coming out and saying that Ghislaine Maxwell, her father, and Epstein were all working for Mossad. Why is Benjamin Netanyahu deciding to talk to Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk was even getting attacked by Laura Loomer because he was going to be hosting Tucker Carlson at the annual TPUSA MFest convention in December of 2025. So you have Tucker Carlson going full based on Hamas, on Gaza, on Israel, dancing Israelis, the art students on 9/11. He's going out on Piers Morgan saying all this stuff. Charlie Kirk says, yeah, sure, okay, we're going to have you speak at AmFest. We're going to have Dave Smith speak at AmFest, one of the most outspoken critics of Israel's policies over the last, 600 days. And for some reason, at this point in time, when when the Israeli-funded media apparatus is attacking Charlie Kirk, and all of their Hezbollah agents are attacking Charlie Kirk, like Laura Loomer and all these other Zio agents on Twitter. I was seeing it. They're all attacking Charlie Kirk and saying, TPUSA must be condemned for having Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith. This is unconscionable. You have Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, who says, I'm gonna have a phone call with Charlie Kirk, and we're just gonna chat, and I'm gonna invite him to Israel. I'm left wondering, what did Charlie Kirk say to that request to come visit Israel? I mean, surely Charlie Kirk was a smart enough guy. He knew that it would be, in effect, in a lot of ways, career suicide to go visit Israel right now. I mean, the only people who are going to visit Israel are the people who have been tweeting for the last, 300 days saying like, well, yeah, there's not enough Palestinian babies who've been, hit by Israeli airstrikes. Like, these are the most brain dead Zio Mossad agents on the face of the earth. So if he's any sort of an objective observer, he'd have to know that it's really not a good look to go to Israel right now. But this was Benjamin Netanyahu's request. He said, Charlie, I see the things that you're saying about Israel, and you're having Tucker Carlson come and speak at MFest. This is not what we taught you on your birthright trip. So he said, I'll give you one final offer. Come to Israel. Come and do some propaganda for us. Come to Tel Aviv. Come tell your followers how amazing the IDF is. Come show everyone that October 7th was really bad. And Charlie Kirk, I would imagine, was probably like, yeah, maybe sometime. I doubt he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Fuck you. He was probably like, hey, we'll see if we can fit it in the schedule. I'm very busy right now. And Benjamin Netanyahu, he can read between the lines. He understands that was a no. If previously the Israeli, organizations were like, oh, Charlie Kirk, you should come visit the Wailing Wall, come take a picture, put on the hat, go to the Wailing Wall. And he's like, yes, I'd love to. But now Charlie Kirk's a grown man. And he said, I know that it's the prime minister of Israel personally asking me to come out here. I don't think I can fit it in my schedule. What? Charlie, are you denying my order? I said come to Tel Aviv. I think we have maybe stumbled upon a case of self-reporting. I spoke to him only 2 weeks ago and invited him to Israel. Sadly, that visit will not take place. I replied, I said, surely you're busy enough bombing civilians in 7 countries. Why were you speaking to Charlie Kirk just before he got assassinated? Why did Charlie Kirk tell people he feared Israel would kill him if he stepped out of line? Did Charlie deny your request for a visit to Israel? Max Blumenthal replied, the last question is an important one. Why was Netanyahu putting Charlie on the spot for a Hasbara visit after what happened at TPUSA? Now, what happened at TPUSA was very interesting. First of all, this was about a month ago, by the way. Harrison Smith, a journalist at InfoWars, Alex Jones broadcast, said this on August 13th, 1 month ago. He said, I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. Is that a normal thing to say? Is that a normal thing to say, that you're hearing this through the grapevine, that Charlie Kirk fears Israel's going to assassinate him? Is that a normal thing? I mean, I haven't even heard that about Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and they've gone full based. Charlie Kirk's an important figure because he really, he did control the youth of the MAGA movement, the original MAGA movement. He's very close to Trump. He controlled the youth. He's very good friends with Donald Trump Jr. So he's a very important person for Israel to keep in their good graces. Okay? And Harrison Smith is saying, through a secondhand source, albeit, I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. He has since confirmed the validity of this, rumor on a new video that he posted yesterday after the assassination. Again, that tweet was from 1 month ago. Take a listen.
It's true. I mean, I don't really have too much to add to it, honestly. I'm not going to say who it was that told me because they've asked me not to, kind of for obvious reasons. So if they want to go public, they're more than welcome to. I don't have much to add to it other than basically a month ago, I watched an interview with Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk, and I thought they looked scared, and I commented on that, made a video out of it. And then a day or so later, I was talking to this person, and the way I remember the conversation going was that we were just talking about sort of Israel and Zionism and Zionist influencers, and Charlie Kirk came up, and I remember the other person saying to me, well, Charlie Kirk says he's afraid to go against Israel because he thinks they might kill him. And I said, that's crazy because I just made that video about how Charlie Kirk seems scared. That's crazy that you're saying that right now.
Followed up the video by saying, I'm freaked out, honestly, in the replies. None of that's normal. None of that's normal. 1 month ago, you're hearing that Charlie Kirk is fearful that Israel's going to kill him. Again, this is after the Iran war when he spoke out vociferously against the Iran war. This is after he said that Epstein was Mossad. This was after he was giving some tepid criticism of the state of Israel. That's not normal. None of this is normal. This all points in one direction. Okay? This is more than odd. This is more than curious. And the fact that this is all going on as the Prime Minister of Israel decided to stop his schedule bombing people halfway across the world to take note of Charlie Kirk's shooting within minutes before any other, leader in the world, even Trump. Yeah, I'm starting to ask a lot of questions here, okay? So let's get the story straight before we look at some of the things Charlie was saying recently. I just put together a few videos, some slides and stuff. Charlie Kirk used to be an Israel loyalist. He made a career off that. He would go to Israel gladly whenever they asked him. He'd go to the Wailing Wall, and he would tell everyone how great Israel was. He made a career off of this, okay? Then he started to come out and provide some tepid criticism for the state of Israel. Then he said that Epstein was Mossad. Then he said, we really shouldn't fight Israel's war against Iran. We should not get involved in this. Then he started to criticize the fact that Israel was bombing innocent people, including Christians inside of Gaza. Okay? I mean, he's not out here like me or Dave Smith or Tucker Carlson going to that level of base, but he was saying a few things. Okay? Then it came out 1 month ago, August 13th, Harrison Smith at InfoWars said he heard through a friend that Charlie Kirk was fearful that Israel would kill him if he, quote unquote, stepped out of line. That statement was given. This message was shared with Harrison Smith one day after Harrison Smith did a video talking about how he saw Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk talking about Israel and how they looked scared. Okay. Then what do we have happen next? We have a political assassination, a professional assassination take place at Utah Valley University in broad daylight. You had thousands of people there. Charlie Kirk is shot in the neck from 200 yards away, right in the jugular vein. And as people are running away, the police somehow find this guy who's yelling, "Shoot me, shoot me." He's in effect claiming he was the one who killed Charlie Kirk, even though he was in the grassy area next to the exact location Charlie was sitting. He wasn't 200 yards away. He was acting like the shooter. This guy was a patsy. He faked the whole thing to divert attention from the real shooter on the rooftop 200 yards away. And then police come out and say, "Oh, we arrested the wrong guy." The guy everyone was filming with their smartphones, the guy that the police hogtied and took away, the guy that was yelling, shoot me," as he was being taken out of the venue for no explainable reason, was yelling, "Kill me," was not the guy who killed Charlie Kirk. Patsy. Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay. Then we find out that the shooter, he somehow managed to escape without a trace. No security camera footage was able to record him. No one saw him on the campus. No one said, "That's odd. A guy's carrying around a large bag with a gun in it." There was maybe 2-3 videos that were taken from afar that showed the man running on the rooftop and laying down, but that was about it. Okay. FBI regional manhunt underway to find this man. Can't find him. We are almost 24 hours in, and there's been absolutely no evidence to suggest that anyone has any idea of this man's whereabouts. More than enough time, by the way, to flee the country, to whichever country he wants to. Okay, that's a bit odd. Moments after, though, the shooting takes place, you have Benjamin Netanyahu who comes out and tweets about this before anyone else, before Trump even, the personal friend of Charlie Kirk. Then a few moments later, you have Benjamin Netanyahu come out and say that, I was speaking to Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago. I invited him to Israel. What? You invited him to Israel after he was saying all these things about Mossad, about Gaza, about Iran, and he was getting all this flack for having Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith speak at TPUSA. All of your Hasbara agents were attacking Charlie Kirk, and you decided to stop your schedule, bombing 7 countries in the middle of this political crisis in your country, to have a conversation with Charlie Kirk, call him and say that he needs to come to Israel to kiss the wall again. And presumably he said no in a polite manner. Am I missing something? Or am I on the right path here? Because a lot of the Israelis and their Hasbara agents online are saying, you can't talk about that. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're just trying to tie everything to Israel. No, this is a political assassination of one of the most famous political commentators in the country. I'm allowed to ask questions about whatever I want. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. I'm allowed to put the pieces together that seem very clear to me and ask any question I want. Do I think it's interesting that JFK's shooter was never found? RFK's shooter was never found? Princess Diana's murder was covered up? The 9/11 story was obviously covered up to obscure any culpability of the state of Israel? Do I think it's interesting that the Epstein list was never released? Do I think it's interesting that there's a lot of questions about Michael Jackson's death and the Israeli drug company that was producing the drugs that were administered to Michael Jackson? Do I think it's interesting that this is all happening right now and the shooter's still not found? Yes, I do. And I'm going to keep asking questions. I didn't know Charlie Kirk personally, but I think the only way that you can correctly honor his legacy is to simply ask these questions and show the world what he was saying. He was saying stuff like this right here.
Markets and economics. And that Epstein, with his little friend Ghislaine and Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who was obviously a spy of the Israeli intelligence agencies, that there was something else going on here. Epstein was not some sort of whiz kid hedge fund manager. Epstein was playing a part. Epstein was a LARPer. Epstein was cast for a specific role, and he played it really well. The sweatpants and the Harvard jacket, the kind of disheveled hair, looking as if he was so smart and above the clouds that he was doing advanced mathematic equations on the back of napkins. But if you actually go into some of the videos of people that met with Epstein at the time, they said he was awfully unimpressive when it came to finance and markets and economics. And it's nothing new that if you're in the intel agencies, you want to try and get as much blackmail on powerful people as possible. Easy, not hard. And this is no longer just speculation. First of all, the evidence that shows that Epstein was a creation of either Mossad, Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, Saudi intelligence, or maybe he was just a hired gun. Maybe he was just the guy that countries would go to and park a couple $100 million and say,
Charlie, you're not allowed to say that Jeffrey Epstein was one of our agents for Mossad. I need you to come to Tel Aviv right now. Media Matters. Charlie Kirk turns to anti-Semitic stereotypes amid the Israel-Hamas war. He's anti-Semitic now against the Jewish people. Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk push back against Israel supporters demanding their unconditional support. Oh no, August 6, 2025. Charlie Kirk splits with Trump on anti-Semitism crackdown, warns free speech rights under attack. Very interesting. Very interesting. Here's another one. Someone says this was 48 hours before he was assassinated. I don't know if that's true, but this video is in fact real.
and one thing a friend sent to me, interestingly, which is, okay, Charlie, we've pushed back against the media on COVID, on lockdowns, on Ukraine, on the border, on, it's like, maybe we should also ask a question. Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, you know, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says, because I know I've been conditioned to ask a lot more critical questions over the last couple of years. So that...
Ben Shapiro didn't like that question. He called up Netanyahu immediately.
On the Ayatollahs of Iran. And then finally, we put them in power. We displaced the Shah. We displaced the democratically elected leader Mossadegh and put in the Shah, which then, of course, led to the Ayatollahs of Iran.
This video is 3 minutes long. You can watch it for yourself. But this is, one of the many videos Charlie Kirk did in the 12-day war, talking about how, the U.S. should not get sucked into Israel's war in Iran. And he was very outspoken about that subject. So more than enough questions, I think, are being raised here to warrant a proper investigation. But, I'm sure Kash Patel at the FBI with his 19-year-old Israeli girlfriend, or however old she is, his Israeli model girlfriend, this Indian from New Delhi who's got eyes going in two different directions. I'm sure he'll figure it out. I'm sure that, our current CIA director will definitely take a close look at whether or not there was any Israeli involvement in this, because Steve Bannon said that he's a very close friend of Israel, and he's he's very tied with the Israeli intelligence. So I'm sure he'll cover the tracks there and make sure that there was no Israeli involvement. I'm sure that everyone will get to the bottom of this, Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to say this is weird, this is crazy. You're allowed to say that Israel probably killed Charlie Kirk. That's, I think, a very fine and reasonable opinion to have at this point. Again, maybe in a few hours there will be more information that comes out. I'll be wrong. I'll say, look, I was wrong. One less person that Netanyahu killed. He didn't kill this one. Israel didn't kill this one. Take one off the list of several 100,000. or millions. Didn't kill this one. Then again, this could all be 100% correct. I'll leave you with that, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video. As of right now, I got a lot more questions. Absolutely tragic. The main tragedy here is that if it was Israel, no one will ever be held accountable. We'll never get the truth. His family will never get the truth. His child will never get the truth. And we see how well that worked out for RFK Jr. So my prayers to his family, my prayers to his friends. This is a horrific thing. Sporadic violence and terrorism, I think, is going to become only more common in the United States as the U.S. empire continues to collapse and focus on issues other than the things that are, directly related to improving the lives of basic Americans. So I expect to see, unfortunately, more of this. And I got to say, this was not random. Someone pulled that trigger. It was a professional job, and I hope we can get to the bottom of this. So thank you so much for watching.